Hi, I'm Brian Cavender here with Charles Perryman, a teacher at New Tech High at Coppell.
Good to be here.
And Charlie, I have a few questions for you specifically regarding Shakespeare. Now, have you read or seen any productions of Shakespeare's works in the past?
I've done both. I've read quite a few plays, Twelfth Night, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Othello. The only one I've seen in person, though, was Romeo and Juliet.
Okay, and would that be your favorite? Or
No, actually. I think Othello might be my favorite, just because by the end of Othello, I'm so emotionally tied up in the dialogue and in the characters that it's hard for me to even separate fiction from reality when I'm done. I'm so angry that Othello just doesn't wake up. And
just enthralled in what's going on in the play and really immersed. And what do you think that it is about Othello and some of Shakespeare's other works that gets you so involved into the play and what's going on?
Well, there's been a lot of writing about this. A lot of critics have for centuries praised Shakespeare for his relevance, for his language, and I personally really love the fact that Shakespeare is timeless, that the themes that you see might as well apply to a typical day at New Tech High as much as it applied to the grand society of the 1600s. Yeah. And while both are equally true, both are equally powerful as well. And I think that's part of the genius that is Shakespeare's work.
Yeah, and I know personally from my experience, and I have read many of Shakespeare's plays as well, that in those 400 years, and I watch a lot of movies, read a lot of books and things like that, and I can't think of anything that has stayed relevant, especially for 400 years, and things that we continue to talk about.
I mean, how many other playwrights do you know from the 1600s?
Exactly.
None. I mean, how many playwrights can we name in general?
Correct.
From any time period, he's relevant enough that, yeah.
Yes, and so you said that you had seen Romeo and Juliet live. What is it, do you think, about a live performance? If you have read, because you have read the book as well, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. What do you think it is about a live performance that would really bring the play alive as compared to reading it and trying to think it yourself?
Well, I think there's a lot to this. One, the fact that getting to see it live, you get to experience not just the language and the dialogue of the play, but you get to see the action and see the emotion. And even in parts where you don't necessarily understand what they're saying because the language is so lofty, you can understand what's happening just by watching it and experiencing it. And I think that's powerful. But I also think that there's a lot of power to seeing it in person because we simply just don't get the opportunity to experience that type of cultural event on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
Going and seeing a play is like something that you and your family go do once every 5 years. It's a big thing, and it feels really cool getting all dressed up and going out to a play and getting to experience something that is cultured. It's something that it's not just going out and seeing a movie. It's more involved than that. And I think that sitting in the audience, you can become so much a part of what's happening on stage that it's hard to differentiate the barrier between the two.
Yeah, and I totally agree. It feels like an event, like you're going and doing something and really having an experience. And part of that experience, especially with Shakespeare, is trying to really get to know yourself more and really get in depth with the play. And I don't think that you could do that just reading it alone or watching it on TV or on the internet or something like that, because I've seen productions of Shakespeare's work on the internet, but it's nowhere near what it would be seeing the same thing live.
Would you say it's an accurate comparison that it's like listening to your favorite band on CD and going to the concert live? It's just such a big deal.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it makes an impact.
Comparison. And then I know as a high school student myself, and actually a bit of a theater geek, I was in theater for 3 years. And
nice.
I have read a lot of Shakespeare's works, and I really admire it. And I find it completely relevant to me just because I know the works. But what do you think somebody who is not familiar with Shakespeare would be able to find from his works, not just specifically Hamlet, but anything that he's read?
Well, I mean, we talked a little bit about how the themes are universal, and I think that it's kind of an eye-opening experience for somebody that has never, ever had any experience with Shakespeare to sit and either, I mean, even if you're just reading it, to sit and read or to actually go and watch a play. The first 20 or 30 minutes are tough, and you kind of wonder what the heck is going on. Why did I come here?
And you have to adjust to the language and how it's structured, but then when you get past that,
I mean, even people with absolutely no understanding of Shakespeare and no history in theater walk away feeling a connection, like I said, to the characters and to the story and to the themes of the play in a way that I think open people's minds to the culture that we miss. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, thousands of years ago, the Greek theater, that was culture. That was where culture was played out. On the week and weekend nights of most, Greek citizens. I feel like with the variety and the scope of our society as we have grown larger and larger and larger throughout the centuries, we've lost a connection to a lot of that culture. We've lost a connection to each other, and being able to experience something together, especially as a first-timer, I just think it's eye-opening.
Yeah, and not only a connection to culture, but a connection to yourself. Shakespeare goes really in depth and has a lot of themes about just characters and their motivations and really knowing what's behind that person. And in reading that or seeing it acted out, you can better know yourself and possibly better know others around you and become really aware of yourself. And that's one thing that I've really always liked about Shakespeare. And then I know I haven't, or I cannot think of something like a movie or a book or something that has so many in-depth storylines and so many different motivations and just goes so in-depth into the human psyche and into just what it means to be human. Could you think of anything that comes close, not just to one thing, but to very many things? I know Shakespeare in Hamlet touches on madness and love and all sorts of really core human emotions. And I personally cannot think of anything else that comes close.
I was trying to think of literal connections, and I mean, specifically we can take Hamlet. There have been a lot of movies that have referenced Hamlet and have used certain, themes from Hamlet and replicated that in their own, plot and storyline. But I don't think any of them did such a literal job of connecting the theme to a modern movie as The Lion King, actually.
Yeah, that comparison gets brought a lot. There's a lot of similarities in the plot, but it's nowhere near as in depth, I think. But then again, it is a children's movie.
I would say, though, that, some of my favorite movies that I've ever seen in modern times, I loved them so much because they had some of the characteristics that I love so much about Shakespeare. Specifically the in-depth emotion and the character building. I saw a lot of that in the movie The Big Chill. I can't remember when that was produced, maybe the early 80s. But the idea was that you had all of these former college best friends who had grown up in the ideological days of the 60s, and now they're all middle-aged, and they come back for one weekend together for one of their friends' funerals who had actually committed suicide. And so this tragic event brought all of these very different characters who had separated from each other for so long, and yet it played off of the past histories and the past love affairs of all of these characters in a way that really reminded me of the complexity of Shakespeare, and it's no wonder why I really loved that movie. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you doing this interview with us, and thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
Of course.
Awesome.